check out jeffdewitt.com for all of my latest. That is Jeff with one F. Okay, like, subscribe, and share this video, please. Now that I have that out of the way, let's talk about what I really brought you here for, which is how I got sober. I want to talk about what worked for me, because I think this is a really important issue to discuss. There's lots of ways of achieving sobriety and going about this lifestyle, this way of life. I didn't know about this stuff. Before I started out, I didn't know. And I'm sure there are other people who wonder the same thing. There are many paths to sobriety. So for those that are on their own path, trust your own experience. I want to say that first. But I'm going to tell you about my jam, about what worked for me. But this isn't a one-size-fit-all situation. Like I said, find what works for you. Okay, so before I got sober, I thought there were two options: willpower and AA. That's it. That's the whole enchilada right there. And neither of those worked for me. Maybe I was too much of a nonconformist. I don't know. Maybe when I was younger, I needed something else. But I tried those repeatedly. I tried both of those. I tried willpower for years. If I draw it out, maybe it's more important to sound and emphasize it more. I tried willpower for years, but look, the deal with willpower is that unless you reinforce it, it runs out. We are Pavlovian dogs at our core, so we need to be conditioned. If we don't build muscle behind new behaviors, willpower gets depleted. To get a new behavior to stick, we have to reinforce it over and over again until it becomes ingrained. So that's one of my beefs with willpower, because I used to rely on willpower by itself, and it's just not enough by itself. It just runs out. The other thing I want to talk about is Alcoholics Anonymous. So just to clarify, I'm not here to criticize AA. It has helped millions of people, and I fully support it. So, and listen, AA was revolutionary for its time. It began in Ohio, I think Akron, in 1935. Yes. And before then, there was as far as I know, there was no concept of alcoholism being a disease. And that's where, this is funny sounding, that's where Bill and Bob come in. That's their actual names. These are not just two random white guy names I plucked out of the air. The story is about a stockbroker named Bill and a surgeon named Bob. Now, these guys didn't know each other, and they were both alcoholics. They were also both members of this religious organization called the Oxford Group. Bill had gotten sober using spiritual lessons that he had learned from that group, along with working with alcoholics. And Bill had developed, I think he had pioneered the philosophy that alcoholism was a disease and that it affected your mind, your body, and your emotions. Before him, there was no concept of that. There was no view of alcohol in that way. When these two people finally met, Bob and Bill, Bob got sober under Bill's influence, and that sparked AA. Other AA groups popped up all over the country. The 12 steps became a thing, and the rest, as you might imagine, is history. Now, AA is the gold standard organization for sobriety. And there's other organizations that have copied its style, mimicked it. Narcotics Anonymous is one. Cocaine Anonymous is another. It's a tried and true blueprint. It works. My dog is snoring. Let me say this before I go further. If you're new to sobriety and you're wondering where to start, these organizations are fantastic. The resources that are available, they are everywhere. They're broadly supported. You should give them a try. And before I continue, let me stress, find what works for you. Trust your own experience. That is what has worked for me. Now that we have that out of the way, let me say that AA is built upon three major facets: role models and mentors in the form of sponsors, routine in the form of the 12-step program, and therapy in group meetings. Group AA meetings are group therapy sessions. I shoehorned a lot of these strategies into my own personal situation. So I go to personal therapy. You know that about me. I knew that my addiction was a symptom of a different problem. Therapy helped me peel back the layers, and it helped me peer behind the curtain to see what was going on in my own head. I knew there were deeper levels to it, and therapy helped me to find those levels. It gave me clarity. In terms of role models, I never had a sponsor. I don't have one now, but I've drawn inspiration from tons of sober people because I've researched their journeys. And I know that people have been where I'm at. So I know that I don't have to do this alone. I can learn from them. With my routine, I've developed something that provides me structure that I can rely on, even during hard times. And it's been tested. My sobriety has survived the death of my father, breakups, and the pandemic. And I mean, it's tried and true. I focus on 3 major areas of my life: my mental health, my physical health, and my emotional health. A lot of these areas overlap, and I work extremely hard to feed each one every single day. All right? I cannot stress this enough. Every day. I don't get lazy about this. Mentally, I'm a programmer. So it's a lot of brain exercise. It's analysis and development work. I also read. It sounds cheesy, but I know I've got to put new ideas in my head, high quality ideas, because otherwise it's like eating junk food. I'll feel tired. I'll lose motivation. I'll get frustrated with cyclical patterns of thinking. Emotionally, so emotionality is crazy important to me. Emotionality. Is that a word? Emotionally, I key in on the creative process, right? So I mean, I write, I produce YouTube videos, I play music. Any type of creative outlet nourishes my soul, and that feeds into my emotional well-being. There's just a cathartic process in self-expression, I think. And of course, I cultivate healthy relationships. That feeds my emotionality too. Like, I've built the best support system I possibly can. And that overlaps with both my mental and physical parts that I look after. I don't fight these battles alone anymore. I don't isolate. I turn to people. And that comes at a cost too, though, because, I've had to make excruciating decisions about who I let into my life. It's tough. People are important to me. Relationships are important to me. That's why I can't just have unhealthy, unsupportive people around me. It affects my sobriety, which affects me living and dying, and the way I affect other people, and look, the linchpin of all of this is my physicality. Some of that, so some of you might hate to hear this, but I turned to exercise when I first got sober, and it really paid off. So anytime I got a craving, I would go run. Like one time I randomly ran 7 miles. I don't recommend that. But when I was done, I didn't feel like drinking. I never felt like having a drink after a run. That's why I did it. Plus, taking care of yourself physically means that you feel well. It keeps you feeling well. And I talked about this in my last video, but I needed positivity to get sober. I didn't get sober to feel bad or to get sad, right? I got sober to make the very best of what's left of this life. That is a true story. So I feed these 3 areas of my life. That is my routine. And honestly, it is likely harder than actually going to AA. Than working the program. But like I said before, I had to find my own way. I had to find what works for me. I had to find my specific flavor of recipe to make this work. And the proof is in the pudding. I'm 5.5 years sober. I'm 66 months sober because sobriety is still my baby, right? Like, that's how proud of it I am. Here it is. This is my baby. I want to show it off. I don't know where that came from. But I encourage you to not pigeonhole yourself into thinking it's not one way or the other. It doesn't have to be just this way or just that way. There's a whole bunch of different ways to do this. So I encourage you, again, find what works for you. Trust your own experience. And if you have any suggestions or topics you want me to bring up, please leave them in the comment section below. Thanks.